Lieutenant Aaron Wells sat quietly in the observation deck of the medical ship Harmony, watching stars glide past the wide glass windows. He was still not used to space travel, even though it had been 6 months since he left Earth. Humanity was new to the Galactic Alliance. They were seen as clever, stubborn, and strangely emotional compared to other species. Some aliens respected humans. Others thought they were reckless children playing in a universe too big for them. Aaron had joined the hospital ship to prove that humans could help, not just fight. He was a medic, not a soldier. His dream was to heal, to learn from alien medicine, and maybe bring new knowledge back home. He spent long hours in alien wards, asking questions, watching procedures, and trying to understand their ways. One evening, the call came for volunteers to assist in Ward 7. The ward was reserved for a species called the Thrin, tall, graceful beings with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the lights. They were known for their strict traditions, their silence, and their legendary healers. Aaron stepped into the ward nervously. The air was cool and smelled faintly of herbs. Strange symbols glowed on the walls. The patients lay on long couches that looked more like sculptures than beds, and moving among them, with quiet steps and calm eyes, was Nurse Tiriala. She was unlike anyone Aaron had ever seen. Her skin glowed softly, like light beneath water. Her eyes were deep and silver, filled with calm strength. She looked at him once, and Aaron felt as if she could see right through him. He offered a polite smile and introduced himself. "Lieutenant Aaron Wells, human medic, here to assist." Tiriala studied him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she spoke words that froze him in place. "Marry me or die." Aaron blinked. He was sure he had misheard. "I'm sorry." "What?" The other Thrin healers turned their heads. Some whispered softly, their tones sharp and disbelieving. Aaron felt a cold chill travel down his spine. Tiriala repeated the words calmly, her voice steady like a doctor giving instructions. "Marry me, human, or you will not live beyond this day." Aaron's heart raced. He tried to laugh nervously, thinking it must be a joke lost in translation. That's not funny." But no one laughed. The ward was silent. Every alien eye was on him. A younger Thrin healer leaned close and whispered harshly, "Do not refuse her. Refusal means insult. Insult means death." Aaron felt his stomach twist. Was this some bizarre cultural custom? Did he walk into a trap? He was a medic, not a diplomat. But the look in Tiriala's eyes told him she was serious. He forced himself to stay calm. "Why me?" he asked softly. Tiriala stepped closer, her silver eyes never leaving his. "Because you are human. Because only you can." Aaron did not understand. Only he could what? Heal? Protect? Marry? None of it made sense. But he knew one thing. He had no choice but to listen. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Tiriala gave him tasks, and he obeyed. He checked vital signs on strange instruments, handed her tools he could not name, and tried to hide the trembling in his hands. The Thrin patients seemed calm, but the other healers watched him with cold curiosity, as if waiting for him to make the wrong move. When the shift ended, Aaron returned to his small quarters on the ship. He sat on the edge of his bed, running his hands through his hair. His mind replayed the words again and again. "Marry me or die." He could report this to the captain. He could demand protection under human law. But part of him knew it would not help. Humans were new here. The alliance was fragile. If he insulted an honored nurse from a respected species, it could spark more than just personal danger. It could bring shame to his entire people. The next morning, he was called back to Ward 7. His heart pounded as he walked through the glowing doors. Tiriala was waiting for him. She looked calm, but there was something urgent in her silver Eyes, you returned, she said softly. I didn't think I had much of a choice, Aaron replied. His voice was steady, but inside he was afraid. She studied him for a long time before speaking again. You do not understand. My people are dying. A sickness spreads through us. No cure exists in our medicine. But humans, your blood resists what ours cannot. You are the key. Aaron froze. Now her strange demand began to make sense. This was not about romance. This was about survival. Her people's traditions required a bond that humans would call marriage. By linking herself to him, she could protect her people and bind his help to their cause. Triala's voice grew softer. If I asked for help as a nurse, the council would forbid it. If I asked as a friend, they would turn away. But as my bonded, you cannot refuse. That is why I said those words. Aaron's fear shifted into something else. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He had not come to space to marry aliens. He had not come to risk his life in strange customs. But he had come to heal. And now, healing meant choosing. He looked at Triala, at the quiet strength in her eyes, at the faint glow of her skin that seemed both fragile and powerful. She was not threatening him. She was pleading with him, in the only way her people allowed. Aaron took a slow breath. I don't understand your traditions. I don't know what this marriage means to you. But if it's the only way to help, then I will listen. I will try. For the first time, Triala's calm expression softened. Her silver eyes warmed, and she gave the smallest nod. Then you may live, she said. The other healers in the ward bowed their heads. The choice had been made. Aaron's life, and perhaps the future of an entire species, had changed in a single moment. He had no idea what would come next. But one thing was clear. The words of an alien nurse had bound his destiny to hers. And somewhere deep inside, as the stars drifted outside the hospital ship, Aaron realized that humanity's real test among the stars had only just begun. The next days passed in a blur for Aaron Wells. He moved carefully, like a man walking on thin glass, unsure of where a single wrong step might break everything. Word had spread across the Harmony. Human and alien crew alike whispered about what had happened in Ward 7. Some believed Aaron was reckless for accepting the bond. Others said it was fate. For Aaron, it was simply survival. He had looked into Triala's silver eyes and realized she was not bluffing. Her culture was strict. A refusal would have been death, maybe not by her own hand, but by the silent judgment of her people. Yet now that he had agreed, he was bound to something he did not understand. Triala did not act like a wife in the human sense. She did not hold his hand or speak with tenderness. Instead, she treated him as a partner in work, but with a seriousness that went far deeper. Wherever Aaron went on the medical decks, her gaze followed him. If he faltered, she corrected him. If he succeeded, she nodded once in approval. It was strange, and yet he began to see that she trusted him in a way no one else did. One evening, after a long shift of caring for patients, Aaron finally asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Triala, he said, sitting across from her in the ward's resting chamber. Why does your people's law tie marriage to life and death? Why is refusal so dangerous? Her silver eyes studied him in silence for a long moment before she answered. Among the Thryn, she said softly, marriage is not as you humans see it. It is not about romance or choosing a companion for comfort. It is about the sacred oath to guard another life with your own. When one asks for this bond, they open their existence to another. If refused, it means the other declares their life unworthy, a wound greater than death itself. Aaron leaned back, trying to understand. So when you said, marry me or die, It was not a threat. It was, "Your way of asking me to share life?" She nodded. "Yes. To share burden, to share survival. You live because you accepted. And I live because you agreed." The weight of her words pressed heavily on Aaron. He was no longer just a volunteer on a hospital ship. He was tied to her, bound by rules he could barely understand. Still, his human nature pushed him to ask more. "But why me? You could have chosen another Thrin, someone who knows your customs, your ways." For the first time, Teriala's calm expression cracked. Her silver eyes flickered with something like desperation. "My people are sick," she whispered. "Our bodies fail against the shadow fever. For generations we have hidden the truth, but the sickness spreads faster now. Many healers search for a cure, but none succeed. Then you came, a human. I studied your records. I saw how your immune systems adapt, how your kind survive what should not be survived. When I saw you step into Ward 7, I knew. You might be the key." Aaron's chest tightened. He was no stranger to sickness, but to hear that an entire species was dying, and she believed humans could save them, that was more than he had ever imagined when he signed up for this mission. "So that's why you chose me," he murmured. "Not because of who I am, but because of what I am." Triala looked down, her hands folded tightly. "Yes, but also because of who you are. I have watched you among the wards. Humans heal differently. You take risks. You trust instinct. You fight for every breath. My people respect order, tradition, law, sometimes too much. You bring chaos, but also life. That is why I risked everything." Aaron felt heat rise in his face. It was strange to be described that way. On Earth, he was just a medic, one among many. Out here, he was something rare. The chamber door opened suddenly, and 2 human crew members entered, Ensign Kelly and Doctor. "Mason!" Both looked troubled. "Aaron," Mason said quickly, "you need to be careful. Do you know what's going around the ship? People are saying you broke Alliance protocol, that you tied yourself to an alien healer without clearance. Some are angry. They think this bond could be dangerous." Aaron stood slowly. "What was I supposed to do? Refuse and die? Or worse, start a conflict with the Thrin? I didn't have a choice." Kelly glanced nervously at Teriala. "With respect, sir, maybe you should request transfer. Stay away from her people, before this gets worse." But before Aaron could reply, Teriala stood. She moved with calm dignity, but her silver eyes burned. "You speak as if I am a danger," she said firmly. "But it is your ignorance that is dangerous. My people suffer. Without this bond, without his help, more will die. If humans fear alliance with us, then perhaps humans are not ready for the stars." The words hung heavy in the air. Kelly and Mason said nothing more and left quietly. Aaron sighed, rubbing his temples. "You didn't have to speak like that." Teriala shook her head. "Truth must be spoken. If they fear us, let them fear. But you, Aaron Wells, you must not fear. You are bound. And with you, there is hope." Aaron stared at her. He wanted to argue, to say he had never asked for this burden. But deep down, something inside him stirred. She believed in him, not as a soldier, not as a tool, but as a healer. That belief frightened him more than her threat. The next morning, Aaron began training under Teriala in the Thrin way of medicine. Their instruments were elegant, their methods precise, their rituals strange but fascinating. He learned that each gesture, each word, each symbol on the wall carried meaning, a history of healing passed down for centuries. But as the days passed, Aaron also began teaching her. He showed her how humans improvised when tools failed, how they used instinct when data was missing, how sometimes saving a life meant bending rules instead of following them. Slowly, an exchange began. not just of knowledge, but of trust. Yet beneath it all, Aaron could feel the tension growing. Other aliens on the ship still watched him with suspicion. Some muttered that humans were reckless. Others whispered that Tariala had broken her people's laws by binding herself to an outsider. The bond was not just between him and her. It was a spark that could ignite something far greater, for good or for disaster. Aaron lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of his quarters. His thoughts swirled. He had wanted to be a healer, not a symbol. But now, it seemed, he had become both. And though fear still gnawed at him, a small part of him began to wonder. Maybe humanity's role among the stars was not just to learn, but to change. The hospital ship Harmony drifted through the quiet sea of stars. From the outside, it looked peaceful, but inside, tension grew with each passing day. Humans were new to the Alliance, and already many species whispered that they were unpredictable. Now Aaron Wells, a simple medic, had become the center of attention because of his strange bond with the Thrin nurse, Tariala. Aaron never wanted to be the center of anything. He only wanted to help, to heal. But each morning when he stepped into Ward 7, he felt the eyes of both humans and aliens following him. Some looked with curiosity, some with suspicion, and some with quiet fear. Tariala, however, moved as if none of this mattered. She walked with calm grace, her silver eyes steady. She treated patients with the same dedication as always. Yet when she looked at Aaron, there was a weight in her gaze, a reminder that their bond was not only cultural, but also biological. The Thrin marriage ritual was more than words. It had created a living link between them. If Aaron was ill, Tariala felt it. If she was in pain, he sensed it. At first the connection was faint, like a whisper at the edge of thought, but day by day it grew stronger. Aaron tried to ignore it, but one morning, as he was preparing medicine, a sharp ache struck his chest. He staggered, clutching the table. At the same moment, Tariala dropped a tool and pressed her hand against her heart. Their eyes met. The ache vanished instantly. "It is the bond," she said softly, straightening. "Our lives are no longer separate. When you suffer, I suffer. When I falter, you feel it too." Aaron swallowed hard. He had heard the rumors, but to feel it himself was different. It was frightening. It was also humbling. Their survival was now tied together. That evening, Tariala revealed more. She led Aaron to a sealed chamber deep within the ward. The walls glowed faintly with symbols older than the Alliance itself. Inside were 3 Thrin patients, all shrouded in silver light. Their breathing was shallow. Their skin flickered weakly, like fading lanterns. "These are the shadow fever victims," Tariala whispered. "Our greatest shame. For centuries, we have hidden this sickness from other species. To admit weakness is dishonor. But the truth is, we are dying. Whole colonies will fall if no cure is found." Aaron stepped closer, studying the patients. Their bodies looked fragile, but he could see the fever burning beneath the surface, attacking them in ways he barely understood. "What do you expect me to do?" he asked quietly. "You must help me find a way to stop this," Tariala replied. "My people refuse to see beyond tradition. They repeat the same treatments even as they fail. But you humans, you are different. You find paths where none exist." Aaron rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm not a scientist. I'm not even a doctor. Not really. I'm just a medic who helps where he can." Her silver eyes locked on his. "And yet, you are the one who said yes when death demanded no. That is why you are here." Her words sank deep into him. Maybe he wasn't the most skilled or the most experienced, but he was here, and maybe that was enough. The next days were filled with experiments. Aaron suggested testing human immune cells against samples of the fever. At first, the Thrin healers resisted. "It is against protocol," they said. "It is dangerous. It is unclean." But Teriala stood by him. "He is my bonded," she said firmly. "His way is my way." Together they created a hybrid treatment, Thrin nanomedicine carrying human immune cells as passengers. The first trial was risky. They chose the weakest patient, a young Thrin whose glow had nearly faded. Aaron held his breath as the treatment entered the patient's veins. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then, slowly, the patient's breathing steadied. The silver glow brightened. "It's working," Aaron whispered, hope rising in his chest. But not everyone shared his joy. The other Thrin healers murmured in disapproval. Some left the chamber, their faces stiff with anger. That night, Aaron and Teriala were summoned before the hospital ship's medical council. The council chamber was filled with beings from a dozen species. Some had scales, some feathers, some metallic skin that shone like mirrors. At the center sat Director Veyar, a tall alien whose 4 eyes studied Aaron with cold precision. "You have broken protocol," Veyar declared. "You have performed experiments without council approval. You risked lives." Aaron clenched his fists. "We saved a life. That patient would have died without trying something new." "Saving one by risking many is not wisdom," Veyar replied sharply. "It is recklessness, and it is the way of humans." Teriala stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "It is also the way of hope. Without change, my people will vanish. If we do nothing, more will die. The human way is risk, yes, but also survival." The council chamber buzzed with voices. Some supported her words, others rejected them. Finally, Director Veyar raised a hand. The chamber fell silent. "You may continue your work," he said slowly, "but under strict watch. One mistake, and both of you will answer for it. Understand this. The Alliance cannot be endangered by human chaos." Aaron felt anger burn inside him, but he nodded. He knew they were walking on a knife's edge. As they left the chamber, Teriala spoke softly. "You see now. The others fear what you bring, but they also cannot ignore it. That is why this bond is dangerous, and why it may also be salvation." Aaron walked beside her in silence, his mind heavy. He had come to space to learn, to help, quietly. But now he realized he had stepped into something far larger. His bond with Teriala was not just about survival, it was a symbol, a test. And in the shadows of the hospital ship, whispers spread faster than light. Some aliens called him reckless, some called him dangerous, but some, just a few, began to call him something else. They called him hope. Aaron did not know if he could live up to that. But as he glanced at Teriala, who walked with calm dignity despite the storm around them, he knew one thing. He would try. Because for the first time, the survival of more than just himself rested on his choices. The hospital ship Harmony floated silently in the black sea of stars. From the outside, it looked like peace. Inside, however, pressure built with every passing day. Aaron Wells felt it each time he walked through the corridors. Aliens of many kinds watched him. Some whispered, some frowned, some simply moved aside as if he carried danger with him. He was no longer just a human medic learning on a hospital ship. He was the human who had bonded with a Thrin nurse, who had dared to break protocol, and who had saved a patient using methods others called reckless. Teriala walked at his side, calm as ever. Her silver eyes never wavered. But Aaron had learned to see the signs. Her glow dimmed when she was weary. Her voice grew sharper when the council weighed on her thoughts. He knew because he felt it too. The strange bond between them had grown, stronger. When she was tired, he grew restless, When he was in pain, she stiffened. They were tied in ways neither could deny. Despite the council's warning, their work continued. Every day they studied the shadow fever. Every day they compared human immunity with Thrin medicine. Progress was slow, but it was real. Some patients improved. Others still faded. Each success gave them hope. Each failure cut deeply. But more than medicine was being tested, trust itself was on trial. One morning, as Aaron prepared a treatment, a senior Thrin healer named Drath entered the ward. His tall frame and sharp glow made him look like a blade of living silver. His voice was cold. "You dishonor our ways, Nurse Teriala," Drath said. "This human twists our healing into chaos, and you defend him." Teriala met his gaze, calmly. "I defend life. That is the highest honor." Drath's eyes narrowed. "The council watches. If your human fails, both of you will pay. Remember that." He left without another word, but the threat lingered like smoke in the air. Aaron exhaled slowly. "He hates me." Teriala shook her head. "He fears you. There is a difference." Aaron wasn't so sure, but he pushed the thought away. They had work to do. Later that day, they attempted another hybrid treatment. This time, Aaron suggested adjusting the nanomedicine to respond more quickly to fever spikes. Teriala hesitated. It was not in her people's manuals. But she saw the fire in Aaron's eyes and finally nodded. Together they prepared the dose and gave it to a patient on the edge of collapse. Hours passed in tense silence. Then, slowly, the patient's glow brightened, stronger than before. Aaron allowed himself a smile. "It's working." Teriala placed a hand over the patient's chest. Her silver eyes softened. "Yes, it lives." For a brief moment, Aaron felt warmth through their bond, not just relief but pride. She was proud of him. The feeling startled him. He hadn't realized how much he wanted her trust until that moment, but not all were pleased. That night, the medical council summoned them again. Director Veyer's 4 eyes studied them coldly. "You break tradition at every step," he said. "Yes, you save some, but what of the risks? If your experiments fail, the Alliance will hold humanity responsible." Aaron clenched his fists. "Would you rather we do nothing? Just watch them die? Sometimes doing nothing is safer," Veyer replied. Teriala stepped forward. Her voice was calm but strong. "Safety is not healing. Safety is not hope. If my people vanish because we feared risk, then our laws mean nothing." The chamber filled with murmurs. Some agreed. Others shook their heads. Finally, Veyer raised a hand. "Continue then. But know this. If failure comes, you will not face it alone. Humanity will face it with you." The warning was clear. Aaron felt the weight of it press into his chest. His choices no longer risked only his life. They risked the reputation of all humans in the galaxy. That night, Aaron couldn't sleep. He sat in his quarters, staring at the stars outside the window. Teriala entered quietly. She studied him for a moment before speaking. "You carry too much," she said softly. Aaron shook his head. "Maybe I shouldn't have said yes. Maybe I should have walked away when you asked." Her silver eyes softened. "If you had refused, you would be dead, and I would be bound to failure. Now, there is at least a chance. Do not regret giving life a chance." He looked at her. "You sound so certain. Aren't you afraid?" Teriala was silent for a moment. Then she touched her chest, just above her heart. "I am afraid, but I feel your fear too, and I know we are not alone in it." "That is enough." Her words struck him deeply. For the first time, Aaron realized the bond was not only a burden, it was also strength. The days that followed were harder. More patients arrived with shadow fever. Some alien doctors openly challenged. Aaron's presence in the ward. But each time, Tiriala defended him with calm words and steady resolve. Slowly, a few began to respect him. They saw that humans, though reckless, also refused to give up. Then came the turning point. A sudden outbreak struck a neighboring ward. Dozens of patients collapsed within hours. The usual treatments failed. Panic spread through the ship. Aaron and Tiriala rushed into the chaos. The alien doctors hesitated, unwilling to try unapproved methods. But Aaron pushed forward. "We can save them, if we act now." Some resisted. Some shouted. But then Tiriala raised her voice, firm and clear. "He is my bonded. His way is my way. Trust him." Silence followed. And in that silence, the first few patients received Aaron's hybrid treatment. Their breathing steadied. Their glow returned. The panic faded into hope. By the time the outbreak ended, dozens of lives had been saved. But Aaron knew this was only the beginning. The council would not forgive easily. The whispers would not stop. And the bond between him and Tiriala had now become something larger than either of them could control. As he stood beside her, watching the patients recover, Aaron felt the weight of destiny settle on his shoulders. He was not just a human medic anymore. He was part of something greater. And though fear still gnawed at him, one thought echoed in his mind. If humanity was to prove itself among the stars, this was the way. Not through war or power, but through trust, risk, and the stubborn refusal to give up. The hospital ship Harmony no longer felt the same. The corridors, once filled with calm routine, now carried whispers and tension. Everywhere Aaron Wells walked, eyes followed him. Some looked with respect, others with anger, and many with fear. The outbreak they had stopped should have been a victory, but instead it made the conflict sharper. Patients lived because of Aaron and Tiriala's hybrid cure, yet the council refused to celebrate. To them, it was not healing. It was rebellion against tradition. Director Veyer's words echoed in Aaron's mind. "If failure comes, humanity will face it with you." Aaron knew what that meant. If their work went wrong, humans would not only be blamed. They could be expelled from the alliance. His choices now carried the weight of an entire species. But there was no time to hesitate. The shadow fever was spreading faster than ever. New patients arrived daily, some from far colonies, some from species outside the Thrin. The sickness was no longer just their secret. The truth was out. One evening, Aaron and Tiriala stood together in the ward, the silver light from the walls reflected in her calm eyes. "It's spreading," Aaron said, scanning the reports. "If it keeps moving like this, it won't just be your people. It will reach others, too." Tiriala's voice was steady. "That is why we cannot stop. The cure must be finished before fear destroys us." Aaron nodded. But before he could speak again, the door slid open. Drath entered, the senior Thrin healer who had always opposed them. His glow was sharp and bright, like a blade. "You risk everything," Drath said coldly. "The council demands you stop at once. Your methods bring shame." Aaron clenched, his fists. "Shame? We're saving lives." Drath's gaze flickered to Tiriala. "And you, nurse. You betray your people for an outsider, for a human who does not know our ways." Tiriala met his stare calmly. "I do not betray. I heal. That is our highest law." Drath's glow dimmed with anger, but he said no more. He turned and left, his silence louder than his words. Aaron exhaled sharply. "He won't forgive us." "No," Tiriala agreed softly. "But forgiveness is not what we need. We need courage." The next day, the storm finally broke. The shadow fever struck deep into the ship itself. Dozens of patients collapsed in multiple wards at once, Even crew members were affected. Panic rippled through the harmony. The council called an emergency session. Aaron and Tiriala stood before them, surrounded by alien leaders. Director Veyar's 4 eyes burned with accusation. "This is the result of your interference," he declared. "You spread your dangerous methods, and now the fever runs wild. We order you to stop all experiments at once. If you continue, you will face execution." Aaron felt his chest tighten. He looked around the chamber, so many eyes, so much fear. But then he thought of the patients lying helpless, of the young Thrin whose glow had brightened after their cure, of the outbreak they had already stopped. He couldn't stay silent. "If saving lives is a crime," Aaron said, his voice strong, "then punish me, but don't punish hope. Don't punish those who are still fighting to live." The chamber erupted with voices. Some shouted in anger, some called for silence. Others whispered words Aaron couldn't hear. Tiriala stepped forward, her calm voice cutting through the noise. "I stand with him. His way is my way. If he is punished, then punish me also. But know this, if we stop, the fever will not stop. It will take more lives, and your laws will not protect you." Her silver eyes swept across the chamber, steady and unshaken. For the first time, Aaron saw hesitation in the council members' faces. But Director Veyar slammed a hand against the table. "Enough! You are forbidden! Leave this chamber!" That night, Aaron sat in his quarters, his head heavy with doubt. "We can't win against them," he muttered. "They'll never allow it. And if we keep going, we'll lose everything." Tiriala stood near the window, the stars reflecting in her glowing skin. "If we stop, we lose more. Lives, futures, entire worlds. Tell me, Aaron Wells, which loss weighs heavier?" He looked at her, at the calm strength in her silver eyes. He felt her fear through the bond, but also her determination, and in that moment, he understood. They could not stop. "We keep going," he said firmly. Tiriala nodded. "Then we prepare. Tonight." The fever outbreak worsened quickly. Wards overflowed. Doctors argued. The council debated endlessly, trapped in fear and tradition. But Aaron and Tiriala acted. In secret, they gathered supplies. They refined their hybrid cure, adjusting it again and again. It was dangerous. If it failed, the council would execute them both. But if they did nothing, hundreds would die. When the outbreak reached its peak, Aaron and Tiriala stepped into the largest ward. Patients lay everywhere, their bodies dimming, their breathing shallow. The other doctors stood frozen, paralyzed by fear of breaking protocol. Aaron raised his voice. "We can save them, but only if we act now." Silence followed. No one moved. No one dared. Then Tiriala stepped forward. Her glow brightened, her voice strong. "He is my bonded. His way is my way. Trust him." Something shifted in the ward. A few alien nurses hesitated, then nodded. Together, they prepared the cure. The first patient received it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then their breathing steadied. Their glow brightened. Hope spread like fire. More patients were treated. One by one, lives were pulled back from the edge. By the end of the night, dozens had been saved. The ward that had been filled with fear now hummed with relief. But outside, the council stirred with anger. Aaron and Tiriala had defied them openly. As dawn rose over the ship, Aaron stood beside Tiriala, watching the recovering patients. His body was tired, but his spirit burned with something new. Defiance mixed with hope. "They'll come for us," he said quietly. "Yes," Tiriala agreed, "but they cannot erase what has been done. Too many have seen. Too many know the truth." Aaron looked at her. Despite the danger, despite the storm ahead, she was steady. And through their bond, he felt her strength flowing into him. For the First time, he believed they might actually succeed, not because of medicine alone, but because together they had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten, that even in the darkest sickness, there was always a chance for life. The Harmony no longer felt like a place of healing. Armed guards patrolled the halls. Whispers of rebellion traveled from ward to ward. Patients spoke quietly of the cure, of the human, and the nurse who saved them when others would not. Aaron Wells and Tiriala had become more than healers. To many, they were hope. To the council, they were danger. The order came in the morning. Both shall face judgment before the council. Their bond is unlawful. Their methods are forbidden. They will stand trial today. Aaron stood in his quarters, staring at the plain walls. His hands shook, but not from fear, from the weight of what was coming. He knew this trial was not about law. It was about control. Tiriala entered, her calm presence steadying him. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. He gave a tired smile. "Not really, but I don't think it matters if I'm ready. They've already decided." Her silver eyes held his. "Then we must decide for ourselves what we stand for, what we will not surrender." The council chamber was filled to the edges. Leaders, healers, soldiers, and even patients crowded inside. The air vibrated with tension. Director Veyar sat high on the dais, his 4 eyes cold. Beside him, other council members glowed faintly, their light dim with unease. Aaron and Tiriala stood in the center. Guards flanked them, though neither tried to resist. Veyar's voice rang out. "Aaron Wells, human healer. Tiriala, nurse of the Thrin. You are charged with breaking the sacred codes. You formed an unlawful bond. You spread forbidden methods. You endangered lives with reckless defiance. How do you answer?" Aaron stepped forward. His voice was firm, steady. "I answer with truth. We saved lives when no one else would act. If that is a crime, then I am guilty." Gasps filled the chamber. Veyar's gaze sharpened. "And you, nurse? Do you admit your betrayal?" Tiriala's glow brightened, her voice calm but strong. "I betrayed nothing. I healed, as all healers must. If my bond with him is wrong, then so is every life we saved together." The chamber buzzed louder now, voices rising in confusion and doubt. Veyar raised his hand for silence. "You speak boldly. But boldness does not excuse disobedience. The punishment is clear. Separation. Or death." The words hit like thunder. Aaron froze. Separation. They would tear the bond apart, destroying what they had built. Or death. The end of both of them. His chest tightened. He wanted to shout, to fight, to tear down the whole council. But then he felt Tiriala's calm presence through the bond. She was afraid, yes, but her courage steadied him. She turned to him, speaking not with words, but with the silent flow of feeling between them. "Choice is ours, not theirs." Aaron's mind cleared. For the first time since coming aboard the Harmony, he felt no doubt. He faced the council, his voice carrying across the chamber. "You say our bond is unlawful. You say healing with new methods is forbidden. But look at the patients we saved. Look at the children who breathe again, the elders whose glow has returned. You call that betrayal. I call it life." He gestured toward the back of the chamber. Dozens of patients had gathered there, their faces pale but alive, their eyes bright with gratitude. Some even stepped forward, speaking out. "He saved me," cried a young Thrin, her glow flickering with emotion. "My family lives because of them," said another. Voices rose louder and louder until the chamber was filled with the sound of those who had been healed. Veyar pounded the table. "Silence! This trial is not for you." But the voices would not stop. They spread like fire, echoing through the chamber. For every word of accusation the council spoke, 10 voices of gratitude rose to answer. In the middle of the storm, Tiriala, stepped close to Aaron. Her silver eyes glowed brighter than he had ever seen. She spoke aloud, so all could hear. Then let it be clear. I choose him. I choose this bond. I choose the path of healing no matter the cost. If that means exile, so be it. If that means death, I do not fear it. The chamber fell silent. Every word cut through the noise like a blade. Aaron felt his throat tighten. He looked at her, at the courage in her voice, and he knew he could not do less. I choose her, he said firmly. I choose this bond, no matter what you call it, and if you demand my life for it, then take it. But know this, the cure is real. You cannot bury truth, no matter how deep you try. The silence grew heavy. All eyes turned to the council. The council argued in low voices, their glows flickering with conflict. Some wanted punishment. Others feared rebellion if they struck down the two healers who had become heroes. At last, Veyar rose, his face hard. You have forced our hand. We cannot deny what has been seen. The fever is real. Your cure works, but the bond between you is unnatural. It cannot be recognized. Aaron's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to speak, but Triala touched his hand gently, shaking her head. Veyar continued, You will not be executed, but you are exiled. You must leave this ship and never return. Take your methods, your bond, and your human defiance elsewhere. You are no longer Thrin. Gasps spread through the chamber. Exile. It was punishment, but it was also survival, Aaron exhaled slowly. Relief mixed with anger in his chest. Triala bowed her head. Then we will go. But remember this, healing is not bound by walls or councils. Where there is life, there will always be healers. You cannot exile hope. And so it was done. 2 days later, a small transport ship carried Aaron and Triala away from the Harmony. Behind them lay fear, anger, and betrayal. But also behind them were voices of patients who believed in them, voices that would not be silenced. Aaron sat in the cockpit, staring at the stars ahead. His heart was heavy, but when he looked at Triala, he saw her calm strength and felt her steady glow. So this is it, he said quietly. Exiles, outcasts. Triala placed her hand on his. No, this is the beginning. Together we carry something greater than exile. We carry the cure. We carry hope. Aaron smiled faintly. Together, the ship slipped into the endless stars. And though the council had cast them out, their story was only beginning. For in every world touched by sickness, whispers would spread of a human and an alien nurse who defied tradition, who chose each other, and who proved that sometimes to heal is to fight, and sometimes to love is the bravest cure of all.